Hi friends, I have a really fun technique to share with you guys today. I'm going to show you how to make your own embossing folders using chipboard and your dies and punches. Now by chipboard I mean something as simple as recycling a cereal box. And you can use dies or you could use punches. And I have never done this before, so I was really excited to try this because this has been around for years. But I just recently came across the idea of using some of my leftover die pieces, and I'm so thrilled with how this turned out. And then while I was experimenting and playing and having fun with all these different ways that you can make your embossing folders, I thought, well, what if I want to use some of my inking techniques with these chipboard embossing folders? How is that gonna work? Well, I came up with an idea and I'm going to show you the hack in this video. So without further ado, let's start stamping. The first thing you're going to need are some boxes that you can recycle. As you've seen here, I had an old chip box and I had a lemon pie filling box, and I'm just taking my dies from the Just a Note die set as well as the tag along dies. Now it's a bit of an experiment trying to decide how many layers you need to stack upon each other. I used 3 pieces of the board that I cut from the recycled boxes and I just glued them together. So I did hearts, I did keys, I did the lockets, I did all different kinds, and I also pulled in some punches. Now you can use foam, you can really play around, but for me I found that working with the chipboard from the boxes worked best for today anyhow when I was experimenting. Now one of the things that I did notice is the chipboard I'm using right now, it's not chipboard, the cereal box, the cracker box, was a thinner thickness than the box that I recycled from the lemon pie filling. So I actually punched out an extra dog and cat and heart because I had a feeling I might use 4 layers, and I did end up using all 4. These punches, by the way, are retired, but you could use circles, you could use, I mean, I know so many of you have punches galore and all different dies. So this is just to kind of show you how I played around. Now, speaking of playing around, I ended up doing 3 cards and 2 bookmarks in this video. So there's a lot going on and it was total play time. Now here's how I'm going to make the embossing folder. I bought a cardboard envelope from our post office because it was a perfect size, and then I just trimmed it down so each folder would be 4 by 6. And then you've got your flap. If you don't have something like this, you can use some chipboard and use some masking tape to make a hinge. Just get creative, but this is what I ended up doing. And then it's just a matter of gluing your pieces onto your DIY embossing folder. And keep in mind any extra layers that might be stuck to that cardboard. You can see I tore off that little strip because that will, unless you want it to, but that will add to the design when you run it through your cardstock. So I'm just going ahead and gluing on my hearts and my keys and just going kind of willy-nilly with it. Okay, I have all the pieces just as I like them, and I decided to cut out another couple of hearts because I wanted to use some Designer Series paper to make an embellishment. So I'm just going to glue my Designer Series paper to that little bit of cardboard. So what I am doing is I'm just getting ready to make some different embellishments to put on my card, all from the Just a Note bundle. And I just cut these pieces out from our silver cardstock, and this is just such a cool bundle. I love this stamp set and the dies. Now I stamped the gray ink down and found it was too dark, so I re-stamped it and I cut it with the die, and this is just regular computer paper because I wanted that texture. Next, I'm just adding some stamping, so just a note. And I decided this was going to be a little love card for my honey. Nothing beats a little love note for no reason at all. So he ended up loving this card, by the way. So I'm just writing my little note, and then I'm trying to tie in, the key to my heart, since there's little keys and hearts on the embossing folder that I made. And I'm just going to finish this layer up, and then I'll set it aside. Now I had some leftover bits and pieces from a card class, so that's what I'm using. I just pulled out a basic gray card base, cherry cobbler, and basic white. Now to run the paper through my DIY embossing folder was an experiment. So what I did is I just used the base plate that comes with the die cutting machine, and I put my my folder and my paper and one clear, no, I used one clear plate, and it was a bit of a struggle, as you could see. And it worked. Some of the paper was a little bit tacky because I didn't let that glue really dry overnight, but it did work. But I wanted to try it again, and I wanted to make it easier because, number one, if I'm sharing these ideas with you guys, I want you to be able to do them at home without breaking your wrist. So I was pleased with it. Not bad for my first time trying, but I wanted to give it another go. So this time around, I'm going to use the cherry cobbler, especially since I realized this little cute note board was going to hide a lot of that embossing anyways. So this time I put the silicone mat that we used to be able to get, and I put my embossing folder between the two cutting plates on that silicone mat and ran it through, and that did the trick. Now keep in mind the chipboard that you use, or the recycled cardboard, the cardstock that you use, it's all going to make a difference. So it's all about playing around. But that's part of the fun. Now, I decided I wanted to add some ink on top to really make those debossed embossing images that I just made with my new embossing folder, just to pop out of the cardstock, just to define it a bit more. And I was really happy with how that turned out. Now, of course, because it's craft ink and I'm not using it to emboss or anything like that, I wanted to make sure it was really dry. So I did sap it with the heat tool, and of course that did lighten up the white a little bit. So now I'll let you watch me put the rest of the card together. I'm pulling out another retired stamp set. I think it was called Forever and Always, but I have to double check that because it had a For My Husband image on it. So I'm just going to let the music play, and you can watch me finish this card. Time to try my DIY embossing folder with the dog and cat punches. Now this time I used the base plate, the die plate, and the specialty plate that we use with our 3D embossing folders. And that worked really, really well. So again, just play around depending on the thickness of the cardstock you're using, or the chipboard I should say, and play with your plates, but it works really, really good. Now I liked how that white that I used on my husband's card turned out with the Just a Note dies, so I thought I would try it with the blue ink. Now it left kind of a halo around the cat and the dog and the heart, you see that, and I kind of liked it, so I thought, you know what, I'm gonna go with it. Have no idea how this is gonna turn out. Was almost at the point of thinking this is not working, but you know me, I just keep playing and playing. So now I'm pulling out some copper metallic paper, and I've cut it with my rectangular dies, and I like to cut out the center of my paper that's going to be hidden underneath the other layers, because then I can stretch it out and use it on another project. So again, I'm just going to let you watch me finish the card, and I hope you enjoy how it turned out. I am really pleased with how these turned out, especially considering it was my first time making my own embossing folders with my dies and punches. And it's definitely something I'm going to do again. And even the dog and cat, like, look at that turned out, I think, really cool. So now I wanted to keep playing. I mean, I spent the day stamping in my craft room, and I just had too much fun. Now here's the inking hack I mentioned at the beginning of this video. In fact, I'm going to show you two different ways. Because, of course, if you add ink directly to this cardboard embossing folder, it's going to absorb, and I want to transfer it onto my paper. So I just placed some plastic wrap around it, as you see me do, just regular plastic wrap that we have in our kitchens, and now I'm putting on some Stampin' Blend markers just here and there, and I'm going to spritz on some rubbing alcohol. Now this is all an experiment. I'm just playing and winging it. But you guys have told me you like to see me do these types of things, so that's why I'm sharing and keeping it real. Now, I wasn't thinking, and I had built up the sandwich too thick, so I removed that specialty plate and put a cutting plate on top of my embossing folder, and I have that silicone mat underneath, and that worked really good. The ink didn't spread the way I quite hoped, but it still spread and it looked cool. Very hard to see the embossing, but now as I'm swiping it with the black, it is popping out, and the recessed embossing does have the color. So this is like my blackout embossing folder technique that I've shared before. I did get some ink on the insides of some of those images, but that's okay. Again, I just kept playing and playing and added some more colors, and in the end, I think this card turned out pretty cool. Now I'm just swiping on some crumb cake just to warm things up a little bit in between the black, but you can see the pinks and the yellows and the blues are all inside of those embossed images. So next, I'm just placing my Versamark over the entire piece, and I'm going to emboss it with clear so it can get nice and shiny, and it'll make the colors of those debossed images really pop. Now at this point, I wasn't sure, am I going to use these pieces for a card or what the heck? And I decided I'm going to make some bookmarks. So I ended up just going through my scrap basket, pulling out some cardstock, and I made 2 bookmarks out of this one piece. And you'll see as we go along, I ended up, oh my gosh, I just went to town. I cut out a whole bunch of die cuts. I used silver paper. I did another sheet with this new DIY embossing. I just played and played and played, and you'll see at the end how the bookmarks turned out. But bottom line, I was just having a ton of fun, and that's what stamping and crafting and experimenting is all about, taking the time to play. So I hope you enjoy watching how these bookmarks came together. I just want to mention too, I am using just regular felt that I got from our dollar store, and I'm going to cut it and layer it in between my cardstock layers just to give it a little extra dimension and height, but also just to give it a little bit of different texture when you're looking between the cardstock layers. Okay, now on for the next inking hack. Instead of using the Stampin' Blends with the alcohol ink, I decided to use my regular water-based markers, or Stampin' Right markers, which of course are being discontinued from Stampin' Up. I'm not even sure if there's any still available. But I ended up just scribbling on the colors and misting with water, and oh my goodness, I loved this even more than the alcohol ink. It turned out really, really good. So again, I've just got my plate, my DIY embossing folder, and my silicone mat and my base, and it turned out really good, as you'll see in a few minutes. Now I'm using my Serene Sentiment sheets, and this is for this month. So if you are one of my current email subscribers, you will receive these sentiment sheets. If you're not already part of my email subscribers, make sure you subscribe, and you will receive a set of sentiment sheets that you can print out and cut or use your dies and punches for your cards and projects. So I made some autumn themed and Thanksgiving and book themed, and so that's what I'm using on these bookmarks. And I am just I printed them off on Fairy Vanilla and Basic White, and I covered them with Versamark and embossed them with clear, and I actually did that twice just to get a thicker coat of embossing. And then I ended up making a card with some of the leftover bits and pieces. So this video ended up having 3 cards and two bookmarks, but it's just because I was really having a good time and just really in my groove, just playing, having no idea how the projects were going to turn out. But I love sharing the process with you guys, always in the hopes that my tips and techniques and projects and mistakes and how I fix them and different fun things that I discover along the way will give you lots of ideas for your crafting at home. Now I had die cut some of the pieces from my embossed layer and used them on a different project, I think the bookmarks. But I decided to cut the same dies out with my copper cardstock and glue them onto the card base, and then raise that die embossed die embossed layer with Stampin' Dimensionals. So now I'm just adding some keys. I also stamped the cardstock on the base with some elements of text images. So again, just playing around, using my stamps, using my sentiments, and using little bits of pieces lying on my desk, and I ended up with a fun little card. Well, I think it's safe to say I had a lot of fun playing with my first ever DIY embossing folders today. It was truly an experiment trying to figure out the different layers of the die cuts or punches and then the sandwiches for our machines, and give it a try at home. But the ones that I found that I shared with you today worked really well using the silicone mat and the base plate and the specialty plates, and just have fun and just play and give it a whirl, because the variations and the different things that you can do and stretch out the products that you have at home using these techniques is just unlimited. And that's not to mention using that saran wrap or that plastic wrap on your embossing folders with your markers and water, or if you want to try the alcohol like I did with the Stampin' Blend markers. But it was really a fun way to spend the day. So thank you for spending time with me today watching my video. As always, I appreciate you guys so very much. Take care and happy stamping.